Hey, welcome to Grind and Flow, Creative Minds Worth Your Time. I'm Chuck Moore, and today we're going on a field trip, y'all, to Atlanta's High Museum of Art. Just like back in school, right? No classes, going into the city, maybe some fast food instead of lunchroom fare. Was it that way for you guys? Well, as a proud Atlanta native, the High was often central to those experiences for me growing up. So it was an honor to actually record this episode there and dive into a theme I'm keen to explore on this podcast: the restorative role art can play in our lives. My guest today has a lot to say about that. Andrew Westover, PhD, Deputy Director for Learning and Civic Engagement at the High. Andrew shares how the High is evolving ways museums can serve a community and bring people together. For example, Andrew will tell us about musing together, an experience created to be shared by those with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, along with their caregivers. Interesting tidbit though, for most museums, the majority of visitors is above the age of 50. But for the High, a majority of their attendance is under the age of 35. Why is that? The question of what museums can and should be is quite timely, I think. Arts institutions and libraries are coming under fire these days, which should be troubling to us. This climate has, however, raised my own awareness of how much I treasure these spaces and the value they bring to our society. But lest we get too highfalutin here, my guest Andrew keeps me grounded and has a relatable passion and insight along with a wonderful origin story. Get this, Andrew had never even visited an art museum until college, and certainly never considered this arena for a career until a fateful day seeking relief from the summer heat, when Andrew Westover found a calling within the glorious air-conditioned walls of an Arizona museum. So now let's hear that conversation along with occasional construction sounds of an exciting renovation at the Atlanta High Museum of Art. Here's Andrew Westover. So tell me, who are you and what do you do, and pretend I'm 8 years old and we just met.
Well, it's tough to treat anyone as though there's someone other than who they are, and I appreciate you asking to start with basics. So my name is Andrew. I grew up here in the South. I spent a couple of decades elsewhere and came back to work at this museum. So the High Museum of Art, as you know, is the largest art museum not only in Atlanta, but also in the Southeast United States, and has long been a real leader in thinking about what is the role of the American Art Museum by example. And that's part of why I came here. I think that art museums can be many things. And what I like about this museum is it's really doubled down under Rand Suffolk's leadership to say, we are a museum of, by, and for the city of Atlanta. And then in my role, I lead the Learning and Civic Engagement team. And so for us, that becomes a question of how do we help people connect with this mission? The institution thinks about presenting complex visual culture broadly, and we think about how do we connect all of Atlanta, Atlanta Plus, to this incredible set of artworks and experiences and ideas that are on exhibit here each day. So the team that I lead is a set of brilliant, fabulous people who think a lot about how can we make sure that we are constantly reaching more people at greater depth to encourage curiosity, to get people to ask questions, to get people to connect with themselves, with others, with the wider world. Usually, a little bit of curiosity will go a long way when it comes to looking at anything that we have on display. You could take it as simply a surface experience, or you could approach it with curiosity and say, you know, I know that this museum isn't just skimming the surface. There must be a reason why this artist is here. Well, let me see if I can figure out why.
Obviously, you're very passionate about this. How did you get here?
I started out once upon a time as a classroom teacher. I loved that work, and it was incredibly difficult. And between 2 years of teaching, I had a summer where I just was like, okay, I'm gonna do nothing but just try to relax for a summer. I was teaching middle school.
Oh dear.
And
that's definitely worth it, bless your heart. That's a challenging time for all of us, those that have been through it, and also for educators.
You know, I have a good friend who would often say, I'm always wary of anyone who says the best time of their life was middle school.
Right.
And I think that
I'll
that's
agree.
generally a reasonable position to hold.
Right.
Those kids taught me far more than I taught them, for sure. But in that experience, I had the summer off between years of teaching, and so I was trying to figure out, okay, what should I spend my time doing? I was living in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. It was very warm. And I ended up going to the art museum largely for air conditioning.
Nice, nice. I love you being honest there.
You know, wanted a place where I could literally and figuratively chill out. And then I was really intrigued. Art museums hadn't been a part of my story before then. And I was like, this is kind of an incredible place. And I started going with some regularity. I made friends with a staff member. She said, you know, you seem to have a lot of time on your hands. We actually have an internship this summer that no one applied for. Would you be interested? And so I was like, well, tell me more. And it was an internship in teacher programs.
Okay.
So they were looking for someone with teaching experience to help them bridge the resources they had for educators. And I thought, well, that's something I can help you. I am a teacher. I do care. I want to help you make this bridge because this seems like an amazing place. So, you know, 6 museums later, this became a career. And from that first museum, a lot of it was beginning to understand what cultural institutions are, how art museums can be educational institutions, how they can be knowledge-producing institutions, but also the real differences and possibilities that informal learning spaces, as opposed to more formal learning spaces, can give, I would argue, society. I think that we have a lot of spaces now that call themselves opportunities to gather or connect, but they're usually designed to affirm. They're around affinity, sharing space with people where we already share beliefs. It's a lot of reaffirming and reinscription of our existing position. And part of what I think is so amazing about art museums is we don't have a litmus test for entry. There isn't a dogma that we're presenting. If anything, you go up into the galleries, if it were the humans who created the works rather than the works themselves, the wagers would be on who leaves the room screaming first. Like, this isn't something where it's just everyone's all in agreement and accord. And in that way, we're almost like a library. It's not a single story, it's all these different stories.
Right.
And I see that also as a really important model for our society, especially today.
Yes.
We need places that offer challenge and support. We need the opportunity to think outside of our experience and not feel attacked or that we need to retreat to our core beliefs. We need to be able to have places to take risks and experiment. And I think art museums can be that and are that for many people. So that for me is a big motivating factor for why art museums themselves are so important and informs how we think about welcoming people in, right?
Right.
Because we have to be really intentional about saying, you may encounter something that's challenging.
Okay.
You may be affirmed, and you may have something that is unsettling, and this is a good space for both of those things. It's good for us, and it's good for you, and it's good for this city, and it helps build something better.
Is there a good example of an exhibit like that may have?
Sure, any of our exhibits. I think that, you know, if you look across the exhibition calendar at the High, we have an incredible sweep of content that is discussed, artists who are foregrounded, ideas that are presented. One of the first things I noticed when I first came here, we concurrently were presenting a Dina Lawson photo show and a Rodin sculpture show. In some ways, those could not be more different artists, right?
Okay.
Rodin is renowned as this French sculptor, classical in orientation in the sense that it's figurative, it refers to myths of the Greek past or stories from the Bible. There's this sort of an understanding in some people's mind that that perhaps is what a museum is for. Dina Lawson is a contemporary photographer who's doing these large format images of Black life and doesn't shy away from sexuality or questions about social class or histories of oppression in this country. And for some people, that's what they think an art museum can and should be. And we exhibited these concurrently. And I think in that sort of presentation, there's an awareness that we don't have a singular audience, And we imagine someone who comes for one will probably say, well, what else is on view? I might as well see as much as I can while I'm here.
Right.
And our hope is that if one of these happens to challenge or affirm, that another may differently challenge or affirm, such that when you come into this space, each exhibition gives you an opportunity.
Right.
And I think that's part of the brilliance of this institution and the leaders that push it in these directions. But I also think it's something that visual art inherently holds. When you're looking at a work of art, you're never looking at something that is entirely from your perspective. If it was created by someone else, there are differences. Even if I grew up religious, even if I'm looking at a work of art from the same tradition that I grew up in, there's a differential in my positionality vis-a-vis the person who made it. And I think that friction is a space of possibility that we like to uplift.
We'll be back with Andrew Westover in a moment, but first, a word from me. Okay, so what are you doing right this minute? Commuting? On a walk? Maybe folding laundry? Whatever it is, your time is valuable, and I appreciate you spending it with Grind and Flow. My intention is to present useful conversations with notable minds from the arts, entertainment, business, and beyond. I'm so encouraged to hear from listeners who've been sharing episodes to friends to inspire them in their journeys. I know I learned something valuable from every guest. Grind and Flow. Subscribe or follow on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. Also Instagram.
A lot of what we try to offer people is a sense that challenge doesn't need to be seen as harm. I think in our current day and age, there are many people who feel that if I'm questioned, if someone says something I disagree with, the correct response is to shut down hard. Shut them down, shut me down, leave the situation. Right. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I think if there is true harm where someone is physically in danger, sure. Like, there are things that need to be taken care of. And for society to function, we have to be able to hold conflict. We have to be able to understand that my experience is necessarily different from yours. There will be things we disagree about. Right. And we have to have space where we can have challenging questions and investigate them. Right. So in this space, when that challenge happens, rather than aim towards resolve, what I often try to point people towards is, how can we ask better questions? In this space, knock on wood, you're not going to have physical harm befall you. Right. So in this space, you can ask some harder questions. You can look at artwork that otherwise might unsettle you, and you can know you will be at least physically okay.
It'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Right? And we can start in that space with a facilitated experience to say, okay, what is this raising for you? What are your associations with this? What questions does this bring up? And I think that's where gallery teaching is so important, where we have staff, teaching artists, docents who are able to come alongside visitors and say, I noticed that you had a response to this. I noticed you had a reaction here. I'd love to know what that is. Can you tell me more about that? And help guide people through that experience.
So how do you apply this? Because this all sounds wonderful, that discussion.
Yeah.
How do you get that across?
So part of it is the facilitated experience, right? Trying our best to ensure that when people are in our spaces, they're aware that we have guided tours, that we have all these programs, dozens each week that people can participate in. And part of it is what's on the wall, that the interpretation team, which works alongside curators and exhibition teams, they're really thinking about, okay, if someone is just coming into the museum, what can we assume is basal knowledge? And what do we need to scaffold and support so that people can understand more fulsomely the context of this work and the questions it's asking? And that is a hard game, because you get, like 150 words to do that? Right. And you're trying to interpret what of all of human history and any possible perspective that's walking in, how do we bridge that gap? And thankfully, we have an amazing team of folks who have made that their life's work and do an incredible job. I invite anyone to come in and see this on our walls, of thinking about how can we best encourage people to look more closely, encourage people to think more critically, and encourage people to extrapolate from this towards themselves, others, or the wider world. And I think that model of observation, connection, and extension allows people to see some of the value in these amazing works of art here that they might otherwise pass by.
It's like you need to have a class, how to visit a museum.
Maybe. I think that our goal is to make as much of this as intuitive as possible.
Right.
So that at the end of the day, I would love for our city to get to a place where every person in Atlanta feels not only comfortable, but confident in the museum.
Right.
Whether they have a guide alongside them or not.
Right.
That they feel able and capable and ready to look at a work of art. That they know that this is a place they can come, when they've got 30 minutes between meetings and they're in Midtown, or they're got their grandmother for the weekend, or their grandkid for the weekend, and they're like, you know what? We can go to the museum. There's always something new, there's always something interesting, and it's a space that I know how to be in. Historically, that wasn't how museums presented themselves, right? If you think of museums in the 50s, look at old reels or whatever, you see highfalutin sense of how we present.
I love highfalutin. Where are you from?
I grew up in East Tennessee.
Okay, then.
And
got relatives in Bristol.
There you go, wonderful. I mean, so my language is a bit out of control. Apologies.
No, I was holding back from saying highfalutin, so
feel free.
There you go.
But just the sense that museums were these stodgy places of performed professionalism or performed class or whatever else. And we really work hard now, and have for decades at this point, to say, that's not what a museum has to be. And in fact, that's not what this museum desires to be. We're not a place where we ask people to become civilized in a certain way. We're not a place where we're asking people to perform certain identities over others. Instead, we're saying, come as you are, and allow this place to be a place that meets you there and allows you to grow in ways that make your life better.
So is this philosophy unique to the High, or is it a movement within the museum community, or are there different schools of thought?
There are different schools of thought broadly, but I would say at the High, this is largely where we're going. If you look at our strategic framework, this is threaded all throughout it. If you look at the Learning and Civic Engagement team that I have the privilege to lead, this is all across all of our programs. I do think there are parts of this that are endemic to Atlanta. Atlanta is a city that, well, to one degree, loves itself.
We do. I'm a native Atlantan, so we will own that, yes.
Right? And I think that means that there's an openness to looking at who Atlantans are as valuable.
Right.
And that threads through what the museum is. To be a museum of, by, and for Atlanta means we have to be a place where Atlantans feel comfortable and confident and desire to be here.
Right.
And that does drive so much of what we do, because otherwise visual culture in a box is art in a box. Who's intrigued by that?
Right.
What we are is we're a community where art connects with people toward social good.
So tell me about some of these programs, like, for example, the dementia program.
Sure, Musing Together. We have a division that we created about 5 years ago for creative aging and lifelong learning. It's led by my brilliant colleague, Laurel Humble. And her mandate coming on was to think about how can we reach adults 50 plus? Because we have a sort of wild problem in the museum world. In most museums, the majority of their attendance is above the age of 50. In our museum, a majority of our attendance is actually under the age of 35.
Interesting.
And
is that unique to?
That's unique to the High in many ways.
Okay.
Most museums, that is not the demographic spread. And so for us, we were saying, well, that's great. And how can we also get more older adults here? Because we don't want to be neglecting one demographic for the sake of another. So that's her mandate, and she has built a broad suite of amazing programs. But one of them that we mentioned before, Musing Together, is particularly unique because it takes some of the strengths of these conversations with works of art that we were talking about before and applies them for a group of humans for whom it's especially valuable. So Musing Together is for people with Alzheimer's or early stage dementia and their care partners. For many people who have Alzheimer's or dementia of any sort, it can be a deeply unsettling experience. To have your sense of self rocked, to have your abilities change over time, it's not simple, it's not easy. And for care partners, likewise, often relatives or family members, it can be difficult to see someone who has had a particular position in the family have that position changed for them, often in ways that they don't will. It brings up lots of interpersonal conflict, brings up lots of conflict within people, and in these dynamics that are supposed to be defined by care, sometimes they're defined more by conflict. And part of that, I would argue, is because so much of those relationships are bound by how can we fix this? How can we get your memory right? How can we prevent any further deterioration? And what the program does instead is say, we're not here to fix anything. We're not here to test anything. We're here to offer a space for you to be with one another, to be with these works of art, and to remember what it is to simply look and observe, to have an association. And what ultimately ends up happening in these programs is you see people remember themselves, remember the person they're with as a human and not as a problem. And I think that sort of shift is allowed and afforded space here because it's happening in a conversation about something other than the dynamic they have. It's a conversation about, an Anselm Kiefer, where you're looking at this wall-sized work and saying, the scale is wild. It's so huge. It's a brick wall, but it's not made out of bricks. Is that a plumb line in the corner? What's being constructed here? This reminds me of. Or when I look at this, it really makes me think of that time when. Or, that's so funny you said that. I haven't thought about us being in that space for decades. Transformation isn't always big and shiny. Sometimes it's these moments of connection that ultimately get people to places they wouldn't otherwise.
It's like ultimate mindfulness and being present.
Fulsomely.
This seems revolutionary, is it? And is it a practice that's widespread?
I think that people have had incredible experiences with art since art began. I think that museums have, at times, prioritized creating space and structure for these types of experiences in different ways. What we are trying to do now is to create situations so that more people, more often, can have these experiences.
So tell us about your Oasis program.
Gladly. So Oasis is a program we started just after I arrived here. I saw that we had these gangbusters Friday night programs, High Frequency Friday, Friday Jazz, that are beloved in this city and both super fun, and they're both very high energy. And so one thing, as a new person coming in, I saw and I was like, I think there's an opportunity here for us to have something, it's a little bit of a vibe shift, something different. And there are a lot of ways that art can offer mindful experiences. And so we started thinking about what would it look like to create a program that really focuses on connecting people with art in ways that have a sense of sanctuary or a spirit of calm. There's still an opportunity for connection, but it prioritizes connection to self, or maybe the others you came with, or could be more broad, but it's at a different pace. So Oasis includes several components. There's always yoga or physical movement of some kind in the galleries, which is beautiful. There is always a sonic element, whether that be a sound bowl or electronic music, live performance. There is always participatory art making, so that in relation to one of the exhibitions or something in the permanent collection, you can actually make art that is inspired by or considers some of the techniques you see. And then perhaps the most unique aspect is Seeing with Spirit, which is a conversation program in the galleries where we pair a museum staffer with a religious professional to talk about how their perspective, their practice, their experience relates to how they perceive one work of art. And so across each of these, there are different ways for people to engage. With the program itself, people can come each month and experience these different elements, just do their favorite, do all of them, but have the entire experience organized around how can you approach your day, your week, your life a bit more mindfully, and in a way that centers really seeing what you're looking at, which I think connects back to what we were talking about before. That with each of these, it is about observation, and sometimes it's about self-reflection, sometimes it's about slowing down. Sometimes with High Frequency Friday, it is about letting loose, having a party, wandering through the galleries with incredible music, and seeing how your perception changes in that environment too. But with Oasis, offering a literal oasis for the folks who want that in the museum.
Do you ever have time to avail yourself of these programs?
Oh my gosh, as often as possible.
What are some of your favorites, or what are some of your favorite programs, or some of your favorite specific experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I love Oasis. I think it's an amazing program. I love those Seeing with Spirit conversations because it's amazing to hear from folks for whom their profession is connected to people's spiritual lives and how that informs how they see the world. I just find that to be fascinating. I also love our school tours. I go on a lot of them lately because we're walking alongside the docents and helping them think about how to better connect with young people. And in those tours, kids say incredible things on a regular basis and help me see differently. So I think any of these programs that give me the opportunity to see beyond what I would otherwise, I'm all for. And I really, really enjoy those experiences.
How was young Andrew with museums? Did you appreciate museums when you were a kid or younger?
So I didn't grow up with museums. The first time I went to an art museum, I was in college. And actually the first art museum I remember really appreciating, I had the good fortune of being able to study abroad, and I was in London. And I went to the Tate Modern. I had never seen art like that.
Wow, what an introduction.
Yeah, it was incredible. And as I was wandering through, I was taking photos of everything all the time. And then I ended up going back multiple times. Like, my friends stopped going with me. I was just like, no, I really want to go back and see that again.
You felt did you feel like you were home? Or
I don't know if it was home, but there was
space?
something curious about it. I was motivated to be there because I was fascinated, and I never lost interest in it. And it was the building, it was the art, it was the people who were there. It was the size. I mean, it's a massive institution, and I would, get fatigued at some point and be like, okay, I've got to go eat or something. And so for me, that was a way in. And then with the Phoenix Art Museum, that was another space where I was like, oh, I didn't even think about working in a place like this. And the museums that I've had the good fortune to work at, each of them has been different, Each
Name
one.
some of them. What are some museums?
Sure. So I started at the Phoenix Art Museum. From there, I went to the Smithsonian's Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden. After that, the National Museum of Wildlife Art in Jackson, Wyoming. Then the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles. And then the last museum before here was the New Museum of Contemporary Art in New York. And so each of them have very different profiles. Some are not collecting, some collect very specific areas. Some have primarily tourist audiences. Some are deeply local. I think the High, in many ways, is an amalgamation of many of them, but is definitely rooted in Atlanta. And I think for me, the opportunity to work at the High was the sense of connected to a city in a place that has really strong values alignment and wants to continue growing in depth and breadth. Not content to rest on laurels, happy to think about how we can be better and be better for the people we serve.
You mentioned the Getty. That's on my LA bucket list. Did it survive the fires? Did it survive the
It
unscathed?
did. It did. There's some really great resources online if you're interested, because they have wildly state-of-the-art fire suppression, airlock, their own reservoirs, like a huge build-out, and they were able to preserve all of their objects, which is great.
What is most rewarding about what you do, and what's the biggest challenge in what you do?
Most rewarding would be when I see people have those moments of connection. I think it's, a small child having a sense of success at looking, or an older adult really connecting with the person they've come here with, or someone just being in the presence of a work of art and feeling connected to something beyond themselves. Those moments to me are incredibly powerful, and whether I witness them or not, knowing that this place is organized around that is remarkably fulfilling.
What's the most challenging about what you do?
Yeah. I mean, right now, there's a lot that's happening in our country, and I think one of the biggest challenges is figuring out how we can navigate that with clear-eyed criticality intact and maintaining our broad welcome. Those are two core values for the institution, and it's hard to do when we have a deeply polarized public. And so thinking about how we can navigate that with dignity, with equanimity, with balance, and stay core to who we are, it's not an easy task, and it's something that we have to negotiate every day.
Going back to your term of highfalutin, the term elite is so charged these days, and there can be the perception of museums as elite. How do you think you guys are doing to kind of chip away at that?
One thing I like to do when the word elite rears its head is to try to set it on the side, because I think that people lay onto elite whatever capacity of others they dislike.
Right.
And what I try to position instead is to think about how the museum instead offers, on the one hand, we do offer knowledge and expert knowledge. And I think expertise is something that can and should be valued. And again, that broad welcome. So for the people who want to dig deep, we offer that, we have that. And for the people who want something that has a little less friction and feels a bit more warm, we have that too. And I think it's leading with both hands is what allows that to really flourish. And ideally, the people who come for one can see the value in the other as well. But we're not requiring that. We just want you to be here and to find something that helps you grow for the better.
What has your job taught you over the years?
That caring about art and caring about people require you to deprioritize yourself.
Interesting. Please tell me more.
This can't be an ego game. If it's about lifting yourself up or being the biggest expert in the room or being the person who's the best connector or facilitator, you're not ultimately going to do a good job in this space. I think that the people who are truly effective, who make a real difference, who build strong, sustained, effective institutions, they're people who are actually motivated by others and by the growth of others and the development of others, and who see this as institutions have to be for something other than themselves. Institutions are the sum of the people who make them up, and institutions have to exist to serve beyond themselves. So I think what these roles have taught me is for that to happen, it cannot be the Andrew game, and it needs to be the Atlanta game. It needs to be, how can this city be better? How can we work with partners? How can we forge new relationships? How can we acquire incredible works of art? How can we build brilliant exhibitions and connect all these things such that this city can grow?
Wow, was there a teachable moment, a light bulb moment where you learned that, or was there a mentor that demonstrated that for you?
I mean, this sounds like I'm just brown-nosing, but I promise, Rand is an incredible leader. And I think he has such a strong sense for how to balance the various stakeholders of this institution, the directions that the mission of the institution requires us to go, and negotiate the various challenges en route. That working with him each day has been, I mean, it's enlightening sounds, again, like almost overblown, but like, that's part of why I stay here. I learn from him each day, and I really appreciate the opportunity to see how the work we do can be more impactful, more meaningful, and better for everyone involved.
So as we wrap up here, Atlanta High 101, what's a good entry-level opportunity to check out?
Well, number one, come to the museum. And I would say, think about what motivates you. Like, what are you looking for? Do you want to move your body? Come to Oasis. If you want to do yoga, come to High Frequency Friday if you want to dance. Do you want to have a thoughtful conversation? Come to conversation pieces. Come to a program where you're talking about works of art in a small group, where you don't have to have any expert knowledge, or you can come with all of that. If you are actually just looking for a way to pass your time, come to our galleries. It's an amazing opportunity for that. If you want to connect with people, there's almost no reason that you're motivated to leave your house that doesn't connect with something at this museum. So I would say, if you want to leave your home for any reason and you don't know what to do, come to the High.
That's a pretty broad promise. It looks like you guys are trying to deliver. For folks who may not have the good fortune of being close to the High.
Sure.
Or say there's someone like Andrew back in East Tennessee. How do you find these opportunities even where it may not be so wonderfully curated and laid out for you like the High?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of art museums anywhere. I think that art museums are incredible resources to their communities and for their communities, and I encourage everyone to go and support their local art museums and institutions and get involved in their institutions. You can volunteer, you can contribute, you can just attend, be a member, whatever. I'd also say that for those who have the means or desire to travel, visit museums. I mean, anywhere I go, the first thing I'm doing is checking out the art museums there. I'll also say that the ideas and the art that we present are available online, are available in books. We have incredible resources online with our link projects, which are deep dives for folks who are interested in these topics and want to see these images. We also have incredible resources for our collection, exploring it, seeing more, learning about it. Our public conversations, where we bring artists, scholars, thinkers, public figures to talk about these things, are on our YouTube page. So there are plenty of ways to access the High, even if you're not physically here. But beyond the High, connect to art, make art, look at art, see art, experience art, allow art to help you grow.
In summation, self-care equals engaging with art.
You know, if you care about who you are and who you want to be, and growth or connection is any part of that, to me, art is an excellent way to do that.
Great way to wrap up. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you to Andrew Westover and the High for being such wonderful hosts to me. My takeaway from this discussion has been to visit the High more frequently. I'm embarrassed to say that historically I've only gone every few years, but now we finally have a membership and try to go for microdoses of culture more frequently throughout the year. And when I'm there, I've been kind of a lone wolf hunter-gatherer, seeking out things on my own, reading or listening to the pre-recorded guides as I go. But now I plan to step out of my comfort zone and engage some of the knowledgeable facilitators they have to get their insight on things. For all the latest goings-on at the High, visit their delightfully simple URL, high.org. And even if you don't have an art museum within reach, go to a private gallery, a school art show, something, someplace real to connect to art, look at art, make art. As Andrew says, allow art to help you grow. Meanwhile, that's it for Grind and Flow. Thanks for your time. Come back soon.